Hey guys, how's it going? Clayton here at etrailer.com. Today, I have a 2016 Chevy Malibu we'll be taking a look at, and I'll show you how to install a CURT Class 2 hitch. Here with our hitch installed, you can pretty much only see the receiver tube opening, but there is a little bit of that cross tube visible from the rear of the vehicle. It still looks great under our vehicle, and it doesn't stick out. This hitch is going to be great for cargo carriers, bike racks, and maybe if you need to tow a small trailer. With this being a Class 2 hitch, we are going to get an 1.25" by 1.25" receiver tube opening. We do have this really nice reinforced steel collar just for a little bit of extra stability. This hitch does have a 1/2" hitch pin hole opening. You can slide your hitch pin in there. The hitch and pin are not included, but you can find them here at etrailer.com. This hitch does come with a plate style safety chain loop. This is great because it's very strong and it looks more pleasing to the eye. This will accept almost all safety chain styles. You can clip that on there. And like I said, it just looks really nice underneath our vehicle. As far as our measurements are concerned, the measurement from the ground to the innermost part of our receiver tube is about 10.5 inches. This is going to be important for any hitch mount accessories because you're going to need a raised shank. Our measurement from our hitch pin hole to the outermost part of our fascia is about 5.5 inches. This is going to be important for any folding accessories that might make contact with the rear of our vehicle. So as far as our weight capacities are concerned, our tongue weight rating is 350 pounds. That's 350 pounds pushing down on our receiver tube. So that's straight down. Our gross trailer weight rating is 3,500 pounds. Keep in mind that's the weight of the trailer and the load included. It's always a good idea to check your owner's manual to make sure that your vehicle is capable of that. Now, I'll show you how to get this hitch installed. To start our installation, we need to lower our exhaust. And here are our two bolts. Our first one is located here, and our second one is located right here. And again, these are 15 millimeters. To remove our second bolt, you might have to lift up on your exhaust a little bit. Our next step is going to be to remove this rubber isolator holding up our exhaust. We're going to need to run a strap on our rear axle to support our exhaust when we lower it. I always like to find a nice solid point, and here our lower control arms have holes, so that works out nicely. We'll run our strap, tighten it down. You want to leave a little bit of play so that that exhaust can lower. It's good to use some lubricant. In this case, we're going to use soapy water. So just spray that all over our isolator. And you can grab a pry bar, pry against your exhaust onto that isolator, and pull that off. And then we're going to go back to our muffler and take off the rest of that first hanger. So to remove this part of our exhaust, we're going to lift up and kind of pull out and get this rubber isolator off that little clamp right here. Then our exhaust is free hanging. Our next step is going to remove our heat shield. There's going to be 6 fasteners similar to this one. The best way to get these off is to take a flat blade screwdriver, kind of position it to where you have some leverage, and then you can tap on the back of it. And that will thread right off. And you repeat that process for all of our fasteners. And with all of our fasteners removed, we're free to pull down our heat shield. We can set this off to the side. Now we need to trim our heat shield. We need to trim 4 inches by 11 inches out of our heat shield. I'm going to use 10 snips to trim this, but you can use a cutoff wheel or maybe even heavy scissors. With our heat shield trimmed, we're going to hold it back up in place and see if we need to do any extra trimming. Sometimes the directions can be off a little bit, so it's good just to make sure that we're going to clear our frame. And you can kind of stick your heat shield back up in place through these little screws where our fasteners are mounted, and that's going to give us a good idea of where our heat shield is going to sit. In this case, we're clear of all of our holes, but we need to come back and trim out this seam sealer. Here on our driver's side, I went ahead and marked that seam sealer for where we need to remove it. Removing this seam sealer is going to ensure a tight fit of our hitch up against our frame. We'll need to repeat this same process on the passenger side. To remove this seam sealer, you can use a flat blade screwdriver or a razor blade. I'm going to be using a razor blade, but we're just going to make our notches and kind of work all this out. And there's little inlets here on the side. We don't have to get all that out. And with all of our seam sealer removed, we can kind of go back and just clean that edge up. And then we will reinstall our heat shield. With all of our fasteners hand tight, it's always a good idea to go back down, take your screwdriver, make sure to tap that into place to make sure it's tightened all the way down. This will keep our heat shield from rattling. So now we need to install our hardware. We're going to be using this hole and this hole. We will use this hole as our access hole for our spacer block and carriage bolt. To start, we're going to do the hole furthest away from our access point. I like to put a little bend in our fish wire. So we're going to stick the coil end through our rear hole, up to our front hole, and pull it through. It's important to leave wire on both sides, that way our hardware doesn't get caught in the frame. So we'll slide our spacer block on, our carriage bolt provided in our kit, we will take our spacer block, insert it to our access hole, push that through, take our carriage bolt, push that through the hole as well, pull our fish wire back, kind of wiggle it down to make sure that spacer block is seated, and we'll repeat that process for this hole, and it will be the exact same on the other side. So looking here at our hitch, you'll notice we have 3 holes. We will be using these 2 holes. So here on our passenger side, since we don't have dual exhaust, we need to remove one of these bolts. We're going to be removing the one closest to our spare tire. This will be a 15mm socket. So now we're ready to lift our hitch into place. It's good to grab an extra set of hands just to help. So we're going to take our hitch up, put our fish wire through, make sure not to get our fish wires crossed. Then we can lift our hitch into place. With our fish wire pulled off, we can thread on our flange nut. You can push your bolt over to the side or kind of angle the hitch so that that bolt won't move on you. We'll get that hand tight, and then we can release our hitch and the hardware will hold it up. With our flange nuts hand tight, we can take our hex bolt, thread this back through our weld nut, and then you might have to lift up on your hitch just to get this to come through the hole. You might have to wiggle the hitch around just to make sure that there's enough clearance to get that through. With our hardware loosely installed, we can come back and tighten down our flange nuts first. These will use an 18mm socket. And with our hardware snug down on the driver's side, we want to repeat the same process on the passenger side. Once we have these tightened down, we're going to come back and remove our hex bolt. After we remove our hex bolt, we're going to come back and torque down our 4 bolts on our frame rail. And your torque specs will be listed in your instruction manual. Next, we're going to reinstall our exhaust. We're going to lift up on our muffler and clip our hanger back onto this bracket. It can be kind of hard to line up our new hardware, so I'm going to take our existing bolt, put it through our hole, find where it goes, and thread it in. With that hand tight, we can come back and thread in our new hardware. Here's a new bolt provided in our kit. We'll install that on the inwardmost hole on both sides of our vehicle. So it can be pretty tricky to tighten this down. I found it was easiest to use an angle-headed wrench. Put that back there, hold that on this side, and then you can come back and tighten down the front side. This might take a while as there's not a ton of room to work. In order to torque down our last bolt on our exhaust hanger, we have to run some long extensions up above our muffler, but still inside of the hitch. On our passenger side, we don't have a big muffler in the way, so we're going to go ahead and repeat the same process to tighten down our bolt, and then we'll come back and torque it down after it's tight. With all of our hardware tightened down on our hitch, we can come in and reinstall our last exhaust isolator. Spray that down with some soapy water. Push our isolator back on to our bracket. Once that's on, we can remove our strap and we're ready to go. That's going to do it for a look at and installation of a CURT Class 2 hitch on our 2016 Chevy Malibu.